And we're live. Okay. So I have another quick show for you guys before the show coming up. I have Ken Michaels from KenMichaelsRadio.com, and he does an Every Little Thing show that's coming up at 7 on Hamilton Radio and many other stations. So I want to welcome Ken Michaels to the show because we're going to talk about John Lennon and his birthday and his tribute and all that other stuff. So Ken, welcome.
Hi, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for taking my show here.
It's a pleasure. We're Beatles all the way. We always have been. So I want to welcome you to, and you got an incredible show too. You just do a lot of great stuff. So let's talk about that. Tell the people, first about what you do, and the people that you get involved, and also the other music, and let's just go through that.
Well, I do actually right now 3 different Beatles shows, but the main one, the one that you're referring to, which airs here on Hamilton Radio, Every Little Thing, I've been doing most of the last 38 years on the radio. I started doing it in 1982 on college radio. I took it to a New Jersey station, WDHA, which
Right.
you're a New Jersey guy, right?
Yes, we are. Yep, we are.
So, are you familiar with WDHA at all?
No, I'm not.
Okay, it's northern New Jersey, Morris County, that area. And
Okay.
I was on that station for 10 years, 1983 through 93. That's
Wow.
where I really developed the show. And it was really one of a kind and still is, and one of the first weekly Beatles shows on the radio because I never had any other show to compare it to. I wasn't aware of any other weekly Beatles shows. They kind of came up a little bit after mine. And when I started doing a Beatles show, I did it the way that I thought a show should be, which is to cover all their music, the group and the solo.
Right.
And when you do that, it's a really refreshing look at their careers. It's not just looking back at what they did as a band only. And now that we're in 2020 and you've got well over 100 titles of Beatle and solo Beatle albums, there's so much there to pull from. It's a mixture of all that. There's thematic sets that I've developed over the years, everything from the serious to the silly,
Right.
everything from John's political songs to songs that start with the word don't. It could be anything like that. I like playing with the songs and doing something that gets listeners involved so that they can think of what might make those sets.
Right.
I put in interviews when I get them. They're all original interviews that I put into the show. And I also throw in side projects, which I think is a very important part of the Beatles catalog. It's all songs that they wrote for other people, produced for other people, or played on for other people. Everything from Come and Get It from Badfinger that Paul wrote, or working with David Bowie as John did on Fame, that kind of thing, or songs from Apple recording artists since the Beatles had their own label. Not only did the Beatles have their own label, George Harrison had his own label, Dark Horse. Ringo had one, Ring-O. So I throw some of that stuff in there to spice it all up and make the show interesting, as well as I put in cover versions of Beatles songs and solo songs, and that's endless. There's thousands of cover versions of their songs, and they keep coming out. There's always new ones there. So there's tribute songs in there. You name it. Anything.
Ken,
family members too.
Ken, how do you pick? I know what you're saying. I understand that, but how do you pick from them songs? Is there a certain ideology you have, like we're going to go from the 60s to the 70s, or we're going to go back to the Cavern days, or how do you pick that, or do you go solo? Just say I'm going to go do solo, and because here's what I used to do. I'll give you a little hint. I used to run a show about 10 years. It was called Beatles and Beyond, and it was ELO with the Beatles. My friend in the UK, I believe was Claire.
Pete Dix.
Yeah, we did that show for like 10 years, and we got his blog up to over 500,000. I don't know, 50,000, 500,000, something like that. But anyway, he would pick the songs, and we would play them, and that was as simple as it was. But I didn't have to pick them. I had a hard time picking them. How do you pick them? How do you take away something that's so good, and then?
Well, the first thing you have to do in the show is you have to pick what the theme's going to be in the last set.
Right.
And then if you know what songs fall in that category, then you have to, I try to anyway, put in a mixture of songs that people know and some obscure songs. It's very easy to get lost in the obscure. It's very easy to play just deep cuts, which if I had my way, I wish it was all deep cuts
I
because that's
know.
the way that I know. I don't
Yeah.
want to just play the hits,
Yeah, I
but I
know.
also know that there are people out there that really only know the hits. And in order to lock them into the show, you got to play some things that they know. So, like for example, I'm thinking about doing a Dave Edmunds set on my show. So
Okay.
I automatically know that there's a song that Paul McCartney wrote for the Everly Brothers called On the Wings of a Nightingale, which was a great song, came out in 1984. Dave Edmunds produced that album. Dave Edmunds played with Paul on Give My Regards to Broad Street in the
Correct.
rock band that he had in there. Dave Edmunds also toured with Ringo with the All Star Band. So you think about all those things, you come up with a set, and it makes sense.
Hmm.
So that's just how my mind works. You really have to. I mean, my mind is so glued to this catalog that you come up with any theme right now off the top of your head, and I could just name what fits. I won't name every song that fits, because you can't. I don't know. I don't know how many brains could do that kind of thing.
Well,
But unfortunately, my brain has been reared this way for a very long time, and I love thematic sets, and I love getting the listeners involved and making them think about what might fit. And I guess it was the beginning of being interactive with your audience. So that's basically it. I mean, from week to week, I have to think about what would make an interesting thematic set. And some of them I repeat, especially if it's the Beatles with Eric Clapton. There's so much there to pick from. For
right.
example, you can at any given time just pick one year and do the music from that year. You can do a decade. Um,
Right.
I just did one the first decade of the millennium, 2000 through 2009, music from that period. So, on the one hand, if that music is unfamiliar to you as a Beatle fan, you got the rest of that show where you're going to hear songs that you do know. Every single show has some hits that I put in there. The
Right.
problem with me, though, is that I look at everything the Beatles did as a group as though everybody should know it. I don't really think of an album cut from the Beatles as a deep cut. You tell me Glass Onion is a deep cut. To me, it's not. It's like the alphabet. You should know A through Z,
Yeah.
but there are some people that only know the hits or only know the one collection. So you got to be aware of that, and you got to mix it up so that it's something that will appeal to every level of Beatle fan. I want there to be a casual fan that just basically knows the hits, maybe knows some of the solo music and listens. And as long as everybody hears something or learns something they never knew before, then I've done my job. Because there's always Beatle fans out there that have everything. So then I have to think to myself, what could I possibly bring to the table here that they've never heard before? And it
Right.
might just be a novelty record. I have a song in the new John Lennon special, which will air at 7 o'clock, which is a novelty record on John that was a response to John and Yoko posing nude
Oh yeah.
on the Two Virgins album.
Right.
And it's by someone who's a very famous actress. I don't want to give it away in case there's someone here that doesn't know. But,
Okay.
I throw that stuff in. There's a lot of people that don't know that. And certainly when it comes to cover versions, nobody knows all of them. And I really, in
Oh,
recent
that's
years,
so
have
true.
come to,
That is so true.
it's endless. It's endless. And some of them are really good. I love cover versions that are its own unique arrangement that's very different from the Beatle version. I don't think I could ever safely say that there's any cover version that I love more than the Beatle version, but there are a lot of cover versions that I do love.
And where are you based at, Ken? You're at what area?
I'm in Connecticut. I'm
Are
in
you?
Milford, which is right next to New Haven.
Okay. Okay.
So, but most of my life I lived on Long Island. And when I started out, when I went to New Jersey, I traveled from Long Island to New Jersey for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And and I also had my show on a Long Island oldie station, B103,
Hmm.
at the time of the Beatles anthology. And I was also heard on XM radio. I
Oh,
was
that's
on
cool.
2 channels on XM radio.
Very cool. Very cool.
before they merged with Sirius.
Right, I have a lot of friends on Sirius. Jimmy Deal is on Sirius. Was on Sirius for he used to be on was it PLJ in New York.
Okay.
And he's got a huge following. But I'm interviewing a friend next week, Debbie Calton. She's a big classic rock person on an FM radio station in Philly. And they always play the Beatles. My friend Andre Gardner plays the Beatles on Beatles for Breakfast, just like Helen Light used to do.
Yeah,
so
I know Andre.
Yeah, so see,
Yeah.
you know everybody that I know, probably.
Not everybody, but Andre started about a year or two after I started. That's how close in time it's been.
Me and him,
You know?
same way. We
Yeah.
started in New Jersey at a local station. My buddy, Bill Singer, was his dad owned Allen Singer Broadcasting, and he was overnight DJ, and he used to have me go in there and work with him. So I used to do it with him. So we used to play music all night long, and he used to get yelled at by the boss and everything. But I did the news, I did the weather, I did all kinds of stuff. So it was, it's an all around thing, right? And you gain people, and you network with people, network with people, share. That's all we're doing. But it's nice to see that people don't forget about the Beatles, because they're the ones that started it all.
I never take it for granted. I know a lot of people say that this music will last forever. Well, I believe it will. Doesn't mean that it will. I mean, I think to myself, how many young people now know Bing Crosby's music? How many young people know Elvis Presley's music?
You're right.
You couldn't get any bigger than those people, or Frank Sinatra. So it's hard to believe that what the Beatles created as a band is 50 to 60 years old now. And I know when I was growing up in the 60s or 70s, I wasn't listening to music from the 1910s and the 1920s, So it's astounding to me that young people are discovering the Beatles, and I want to learn how that's being done. And I can tell you that these days, I do talk to teenagers. If any of them wear a Beatles shirt, I approach them, because I want to know myself. I say, how did you find out about the Beatles? I know that they usually tell me it's from their parents. So I don't know if it's from streaming online, going to YouTube, from friends, from the Beatles channel on Sirius XM. However they're finding out, somehow that music is getting across to young people. And It's amazing. Do you know, by the way, that the first half of this year, there was a statistic that the Beatles have outsold any other artist in the United States? It was over 1 million units.
Oh, I believe that.
So,
yeah.
For a band that hasn't been around since 1970, that's beyond amazing.
Yeah,
it really is.
I know the Beatles family, extended family is huge. And there's so much stuff going on. But let's talk about John Lennon, because that's what we're going to talk about. John Lennon's birthday. And of course, he's gone. We miss him. And, Double Fantasy, great album, last album, and even the album after that, I think that, some other songs on it left over. Great stuff. But what a tragic thing. I mean, it's a tribute to him is just like, God's gift to the world, because he was.
Yeah, well, the older I get, the more I just find it amazing how much he accomplished in 40 short years on this earth. And that's even with being away from the public spotlight for 5 years.
Amazing, right?
So,
amazing.
But, great music, it lasts forever. And even though John's solo catalog is a fairly small catalog, it's a very powerful catalog. And between that and all the amazing stuff that the Beatles brought to us, and they're so rich in many different styles of music. And I'm not just talking about genres and all. Lyrically, the way that John wrote through the years, he's written in so many different styles. A straightforward love song like "In My Life," stream of consciousness lyrics like "I Am the Walrus," and then the stark, bare, honest lyrics of "Plastic Ono Band," and then the political stuff on "Sometime in New York City," and there's so much stuff that he wrote, and it's all really strong. And I always believe, because I'm very much a melody guy, And I look at John, Paul, and George as three of the greatest melodic writers of all time. And that's, I just think that the stuff that those three songwriters wrote, group and solo, is so incredibly powerful. Not just melodic, but the lyrics too.
Oh
But
yeah,
I think part of the reason why I love the Beatles so much is because melodically they've given us the greatest songs ever. The single biggest reason why I feel that the Beatles music has endured all these years is because the songs are great first.
yeah.
That's separate from the recording, you
Oh,
know?
you're right. You're absolutely right. And then the albums were the same way. I mean, if you played one album, you played one song, you had to listen. I had to listen to the whole side. I had to listen to both parts of the album first before I even put it away. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I haven't heard this in a while. I want to hear it again. I want to hear it again. I want to hear this song. I want to hear this song. The,
yeah.
the, the, the style, the music, everything, the lyrics, everything. I was talking to Abby about Abbey Road the other day,
Mm.
and I mean, every album had its own unique thing, which made them special and made the album special. Every song related to what it was supposed to be at a theme, and just every song just hits you really hard, like, with a little help from your friends and Sergeant Pepper's and just With and Without You, all these different songs. They're not just lyrics and music that people say. And
Right.
there are people that don't like the Beatles, and I'm like, why do you not like the Beatles? You realize if the Beatles weren't there, that a lot of artists wouldn't perform because they didn't have the influence.
Hmm.
So I
That's
don't
true.
I don't understand it, but I do respect them. I
Mm.
respect them. I respect their music, but I also don't understand it.
I agree with you. I mean, everybody in the world has different tastes, and you just have to deal with that. And I'll go on record as saying I think the Beatles are the greatest artists of our lifetime,
Oh
but I
yeah,
don't expect everybody to agree with me. But I do believe that, and part of the reason is because they continued to have all the success that they had on their own.
right.
If just for what they did as a band alone, they deserve all the kudos, all the acclaim. But once you add to that the success that they had on their own, I say it all the time, and so many people, especially young people, aren't aware of it. But the Beatles are really the only group where each individual member had commercial success with singles and albums.
True, very true.
I mean, Ringo had 7 top 10 singles in the US alone and 2 top 10 albums. But overall in sales, he did the least. So I mean, who wouldn't want to
Right,
have a career
right,
just like
right.
that? And in with George, you not only have his solo music, but his career as a film producer, also the Traveling Wilburys success and all that.
Oh, you
With
can imagine.
McCartney,
Yeah,
McCartney's got so much success with his solo music, being in Wings, his solo stuff, his classical music, his music with the Fireman. It's a lot of ethereal stuff that he put out there. There's so much that they've done. And this is stuff that I believe, especially in the ever expanding podcast world that's out there, is going to be analyzed and dissected and trisected for decades, and centuries to come, because they've left us with so much music to
Yeah.
look at.
Do you ever get that, Ken, where you just found something and say, "Oh my God, this is something new. I haven't ever heard this, haven't seen this." You still uncovering things, or you're pretty much maxed out now because
Well, no, as far as the group and solo catalog, I know it's only some of the unreleased Beatles stuff that comes out in these box sets from Sergeant Pepper, the White Album.
right,
There's always a lot of this stuff has been bootlegged, a lot of it hasn't. Like, for example, there's an instrumental version in the White Album box set of Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Baby, and it's a jam, and it really works. And I never heard that before.
right,
And so something like that, I just find to be, very cool. There's always things you can learn about them, but and especially with all these box sets and the solo careers of McCartney, there's a lot of stuff there that I never heard before.
right.
Demos and stuff, and yeah, it's never ending. You know, Nobody will ever know everything there is to know about the Beatles.
No, I know that.
It's impossible.
I know, definitely understand that. So with John Lennon's birthday, and we hear from Sean and Julian. They're working on stuff, and Julian is an incredible artist, and Sean himself as well.
Hmm.
Wait, would they get it from their dad? I mean, yeah, obviously, but they're still incredible artists. They're still pursuing the career. Do you tap into them as well, right? Extended
Oh,
family.
sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I have interviewed Julian. I
Right.
haven't interviewed Sean. I've interviewed Yoko a couple of times too.
Mm-hmm.
She's been very sweet. As a matter of fact, this just came out today. This is the brand new compilation. Give Me
Oh,
Some
okay.
Truth. This
Mhm.
is 36 tracks from John's solo career. They were handpicked by Yoko and Sean, and they were remixed as well.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, but I'm very, very impressed with Yoko and Sean and Julian for their
Mm-hmm.
music, and all very different. Julian, a lot of his stuff will remind you of John, very
Yes.
melodic, but
Mhm.
he's also been influenced by a lot of jazz. He loves Steely Dan and Keith Jarrett and people like that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And
Mm.
Sean is really all over the place. Sean is very influenced by Yoko just as much as John,
Right.
which you would expect having lived with her, most of his life. But he does all kinds of stuff: alternative music, pop music. He's always turning up on friends' albums. He's really all over the place, and I'm extremely impressed with Sean. And I've loved Yoko stuff, especially. I'm not as much a fan of her screaming
I
love
don't like.
songs,
I don't like that. I'm sorry.
but the more commercial stuff that she's done, which most people haven't even heard, is quite good. You'd be surprised how melodic some of her stuff is,
Yeah,
really.
no, I understand, and I think the reason why she screams is also to help her voice somehow. It's that's the only thing I can come up with. And I don't know why you would scream. Okay,
Well, if you think about it, it's like vocal improvisation, using the
well,
voice just as much as a guitarist would play a solo. How different is that?
oh, that's a good interpretation of it. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
It's real. So let's talk about Paul McCartney for a minute.
Mm.
Paul's had an amazing career, with the Beatles. I just saw the other day on him writing all the songs, Scrambled Eggs, Turning Into Yesterday, and all
Mm.
the other songs that he wrote. And him and John sit down together, and then that won't work, this won't work, and then they try it, and then all of a sudden it clicks. I mean, you got to have a certain gift for that to happen. You know that because there's
Mm.
not. It's like a magic there, and that magic doesn't happen with everybody, but it did
Sure.
happen to these guys, and Paul McCartney was one of them. Um, in his later albums, um, do you feel that all the albums rank about the same as, say, his earlier Wings? I mean, I have to say some are good, some aren't.
I think his albums go from good to great. I
I
don't
like
think every
Egypt
album
one.
was great.
Yeah, the Egypt
What's that?
one was really good. Egypt one was really
I
good.
love that. I would rank Egypt Station probably number 10 amongst
Yeah,
all of his albums.
totally
If
agree.
you were to, if you want me to say which ones from Paul's post Beatles career I would call great, I'll do this chronologically for you.
Oh wow, I can't even
um,
remember them all. So go ahead.
that's around 10 albums I would say would be great. Ram, Band on the Run,
Yes.
uh, Venus and Mars, I think was a great album. Tug of War, Press to Play, which is a very polarizing album. People either love it or hate it. Flowers in the Dirt, which is my favorite of all of his albums. Flaming Pie, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. Um, Maybe not Memory Almost Full as much. New and Egypt Station. That's 10 albums there.
Yeah.
Those I'd all call great. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give it 10. But there's
Okay.
a lot of nines too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
You try to create. I think that's what he. I think that's what he did. John did, and they tried to create something that everybody would like, but not everybody's going to like everything. So let's just create what I like and throw it out there and see who likes it. That's what I think their position was. As the Beatles. Ringo's the same way, and I know George was that way because when I talked to my friend Phil Hatton, he said that George, when they did when we was Fab, which is really was a cool like takeoff on a Beatles song. They wanted to make it almost like a Beatles song. to be a tribute to the Beatles, because that's where his roots were.
Right.
So, and it comes across like that.
Oh, sure. And who better to have than Jeff Lynne to help you with that?
Oh God, yeah. What a
And
Beatles fanatic he is. You think we're bad? He's worse than us. I mean, come
and
on.
and you've got Ringo on the song too.
Yeah, Ringo's on the
So
team too. Yeah.
at any given time, they could have turned on the Beatles sound. I mean, I look at the song "Woman" from John Lennon, which
Oh,
I just posted on Facebook today. It could be my favorite John Lennon song of all time, and that could have been a Beatles song.
yeah.
It definitely has a Beatles sound, Beatle qualities to
Right.
it.
Yep.
There are certain songs from John, like if you know the Mind Games album, "Out the Blue" or I Know,"
Hmm.
very, very Beatle-y to me. Um, yeah, sure. There's plenty of them throughout the solo careers, especially when you're talking about Ringo working with Mark Hudson, who's another Beatle baby,
Oh yeah, I
just
love
like
Mark.
Jeff Lynne.
I love Mark.
Yeah, they did a lot of great work, and so much of what he did with Mark was to capture more of a Beatles sound. And you can feel that in the way the songs were written, the instrumentation, using similar instruments, similar model instruments.
Right.
You could tell, you know, um, with Mark Hudson, he probably felt that Ringo was a Beatle, scream it to the world, be proud of it. And I think there came a time when Ringo wanted to break away from that, while still being extremely proud. And so many of the albums that he's made ever since working with Mark Hudson are nothing like the ones with Mark Hudson. It's very different.
Right.
He's written with a lot of different people, and I think he's branched out a lot as a songwriter too.
Wow,
You
that's
know,
really cool. Yeah. That's like when I talked to Tommy Shaw from Styx.
hmm,
They do a song called "I Am the Walrus," which
sure,
is it's like a tribute to the Beatles. But he grew up with the Beatles, so even though Styx is on its own with their own music, Beatles is always being played live. When we saw Foreigner live, and we met Lou Gramm, and we met Mick Jones, they did Beatles songs in between. They
sure.
did. I saw her standing there, and a bunch of other ones in between. I even think one of the bands even did Helter Skelter. I think Eddie Money did Helter Skelter. So when you look at the acts that actually tribute and love the Beatles, their music people love because they know that people are going to remember them songs and they're
Hmm.
going to sing them songs and going to love them. Jason Bonham, when we saw him with Led Zeppelin, as his own Led Zeppelin, not, the real guys, just him.
Right.
But they did a Beatles song and they knocked it dead. They were great. They did some great stuff.
Well,
They
that's
mixed
the
it in
thing.
deadly.
Yeah. Certain people, you might be surprised at how much they love the Beatles. Ozzy Osbourne is a big Beatle fan,
Yep.
and he's
Too.
covered, I think he covered John's song How. Um, but, he met Paul McCartney um, around the time of the tribute to 9/11 concert, and he was like, a crazed fan. And this is someone who's had a lot of success on his own and
Mm-hmm.
with Black Sabbath, and yet he's like a little kid
Yeah,
around Paul
yes.
McCartney.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were just asking me if there are things that I still learn. Just today, I found out about there's a box set that Elton John is putting out. Wish I could look it up right now, but it's coming out in November. It's got a lot of stuff that he's never released before. And in 1969, he was going to put out an album, and the title track of the album was very similar to Sergeant Pepper, and it had a psychedelic feel to it.
Oh, right.
And that's going to be on the album. And I got to hear the song today, and it's got that 67 psychedelic feel. I never knew anything at all about this. And I followed Elton John in the early 70s. I was a big Elton John fan.
Mm-hmm.
Knew the Empty Sky album, which came out before the Elton John album.
Right.
But I didn't know about all this other stuff because Elton did a lot of music, especially as a session player
Yeah.
for other people,
Yeah.
a lot in the very beginning.
Yep.
But I never knew about this song. I wish I could look it up right now, but it is on the box set.
Oh wow, that's another way to go by it. I was talking to David Payton, and he's of course from Pilot and Alan Parsons Project. And did you know he was on Elton John's tour for 6 years? So he played with Elton John, and he
Yeah.
loved everything that Elton John did. He said, and guess what? We played the Beatles. He even told me, he
Yeah.
said, we all saw us standing there.
Yeah, David Payton sang lead on Magic, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Great voice.
And
Wow.
also, and tons of Alan Parsons for like 10 years,
Mm,
all the way from the Tales of Mystery and Imagination, all the way up to probably, I think he said Stereotomy.
okay.
That's a lot of
Wow.
albums, iRobot and everything. And Ian Berenson was in with them. And of course,
Colin
Alan himself,
Blunstone. Colin Blunstone.
Colin Bloodstone as well, and Eric Wolfson.
Right.
And Eric, he was an amazing, amazing artist. I wish I could have interviewed him today, but unfortunately, he passed away.
Great
The,
talent.
yeah, and again, their music is influenced by the Beatles.
Oh, you could tell easily. Yeah.
Beatles. But is there anything that's rare that you're trying to find and you can't find it? That's the key. You're looking for something and you can't find it. I mean, I was looking for the longest time for I don't know if it was I don't know if it was the Butcher's album or what album it was, but they banned the cover because of body parts and stuff. But it was worth a lot of money back then, and of course, I think the wedding album is still worth over a few $100 as well if it's in good condition. I think excellent condition, it's worth a little more. But is there anything rare you're looking for from the Beatles?
No. I hate to be this. The thing is that I've never been like a collector per se. I care about the recordings. I care about having everything that they released. I don't have to have the rarest. Hey, if you want to give me a Butcher cover, I'll be more than happy to take it. But I'm not going to actively hunt for one.
Right.
I care more about the music. I mean, there's this infamous track that the Beatles did called Carnival of Light, which has never come out. And it's an experimental thing that Paul wrote. And he's toyed with the idea of putting it out. It's supposed to be a very long piece.
Mm-hmm.
It was written for a specific project in England at the time, and it's never come out. It's probably not all that great, but because it was from that period, there'll always be people who want to hear it because it was from the Beatles period. Right. I mean, I don't know of much that I haven't heard, except I would love, there's certain things that we don't know if it ever existed. I mean, I've heard Live at the Star Club, which, is a fascinating recording because you still hear the band. It's not great sound quality. You can still hear the guitar playing really well. You can hear the energy on the record. It's really important historically. What I would give to have any, board quality concert of the Beatles while they were in Hamburg, even when Pete Best was with them, that would be really fascinating because they did a lot of material then that they didn't release, and you got to see them really develop as a band. That's part of the fascination in following the Beatles, not only from the Please Please Me album through Abbey Road and Let It Be, even if you study the Decca audition recordings. And that was, January 1st of 1962. And Please Please Me came out, the album, in March of 63. What a difference in a year. It's like,
the sound
when you, not just the sound quality, I mean the performance of them as a band.
Right.
But you can tell at the Decca audition, recordings that they're getting there, but they're not ready yet. They're getting close. And that's part of the excitement of that. They're still fun to listen to.
What's funny is we met Peter Tork a few years ago, and of course he's from the Monkees. And I asked him, I says, "Is there anything rare that you want to get?" And he says, "There was me. We did the time with the Beatles way back, and it was like one or two songs." And he says, "If I can ever find that, I would be happy." I said, "I don't know who would have it. Who would have it? Who would have that recording of the Monkees and the Beatles together?"
I never heard about that.
Yeah, he told me. I never heard about it. He told me.
Did he say anything about the songs?
He didn't say the song. He just said it was a recording that the Monkees and they did together. And I guess they did it during that time when they did
they visited
Zor and Zam and all their it's like Last Train to Clarksville and stuff like that. In between, when they met them, they did a couple recordings. And I'm like, really, that's really cool. I'd like to see it. Who could have that? Who would have that?
I know the Monkees visited the Beatles while they were doing the Sgt. Pepper album. That much I know. And Mike Nesmith is in the video for A Day in the Life. I know that. And Peter Tork plays some banjo in the Wonderwall film from George Harrison. But I don't know of the Monkees and Beatles recording anything together.
Well, we never heard it, but if I heard it from him, then I gotta go by what he's saying.
I'd love to hear that interview if you can provide it or bring it back online or
It was
something.
a live interview. It was an interview that I met him at a local school with my wife, and we talked to him, and we talked to him after the show, and that's what he said. He said, "Yeah, there's a recording somewhere of us with the Beatles," and he's just like, "I would love to find that, and then share it with the world." They're like, "Who would have that?" Because that was, you're talking late 60s. If somebody had a little tape recorder or whatever, I don't know.
But he said specifically it was music they recorded together.
Yeah, music they recorded together. It was probably like
just a conversation.
No, I think it was just them fooling around, probably jamming around. Yeah.
I'll ask my monkey friends. I know a few monkey experts, but I'm sure that would have come out in books if we knew more about it.
Well, again, if somebody hides things, how do you know? Like, I was going to talk to Christian Nesmith in a little bit, hopefully soon, but we'll see when he gets back to me. I'm going to ask him, did your dad ever mention, that you guys did some jammings with the Beatles? That's the only way I know. You ask him, and then Mike say, "Oh yeah, here it is." And if he doesn't know, he doesn't know. But maybe they don't remember. I don't know. I can't ask Davey. He's dead. I can't ask Peter. He's dead.
Right.
I never met Mickey, so I don't know what's going on with that. And then, of course, Mike's hard to reach.
Try to get Mickey. Didn't he just release a live album?
I believe he did.
To promote that. You can ask him.
The hardest thing is trying to get people on Facebook. That because it's just, you go through their agents. Sometimes they don't answer. I got Patty Smythe now from the Patty Smythe. Yeah, Scandal. Yeah. And of course John McEnroe. She's married to him, but she reached out to me and she said, "Oh, I love what you're doing. Let's get together and talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, sounds good." So and Pat Benatar has been a friend of mine for years. Her and Neil have been friends of mine for years.
Yeah.
You mentioned me on Oprah Winfrey way back, but on Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. What Beatles song did Pat cover?
I don't know.
I'm testing you now.
I don't know. I don't know a lot about the music. I only know the hits. I don't know a lot about her.
No, she covered Helter Skelter.
Oh, Helter Skelter. Okay.
Yeah, she did that on her first or second album. So I played that. Yeah, in my college days, I played that on my shows. So
is it a good version?
Very good. Well, what kind of voice she's got.
Oh,
so killer version.
Well, Heart's like that, Ann and Nancy, they're amazing, and they do Led Zeppelin stuff. They did Stairway to Heaven. We saw them live in New Jersey here, but I think that they've done a lot of Beatles stuff because they always end up with a Beatles song too.
Yeah, well, they did a medley of Long Tall Sally and I'm Down.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Ann Wilson made a solo album where she covered Isolation, John's song.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sure they're huge Beatles fans. I've always wanted Ann and Nancy to be on Ringo's All Star in the band. They would be a natural.
What an amazing thing that would be, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Virgin bands. So we got about 10 minutes before we go live and then your show starts. So let me ask you, what do you want people to know from your show? What do you want them to take from it? Other than that, I love Beatles music. It's because that's what it is.
It really is. It's taking a look at the Beatles from a 360-degree angle. It's not just zeroing in on the 60s and what the Beatles did in the 60s. You'll always get part of that in the show. I always offer information about that in the show. Right. But this is about the full catalog of the Beatles up to and including today. So if there's any new release, if there's a new Paul McCartney album, you're going to hear something from it in the show. If there's a new Ringo album, if there's a posthumous album from John or George, it'll be in there. Right. You might get stuff from the archival box sets when Let It Be comes out. I'm sure I'll be playing stuff from that in the show. But it really is looking at everything that the Beatles are ever involved with. I really do believe that everything that you do in your lifetime is part of what makes you who you are.
Well, I like
it's
that.
You can't just compartmentalize and say the Beatles is just what they did as a band, because to me, I'm very much a song man first, and if you were to say, well, Nowhere Man is a John Lennon song, that's a Beatles song, and Mind Games is a John Lennon song, and it's a solo song, they're still John Lennon songs. So it really comes down to the songwriter first. And certainly in the case of the Beatles, there were times when John and Paul wrote together, but it's still their work. It's a continuation of their catalog. I look at everything that they've done, including all the side projects, all the Apple recordings. That's all one big body of work. It's not
Right,
this is the group, but this is the solo, and there's a
right,
big line in the middle.
right,
And
right,
there are
right.
a lot of people who do look at it that way, and it's very unfortunate. But there's so much great stuff that they've done on their own, and anytime somebody buys a solo album, they're bound to hear a number of songs they really like, and they're only going to know it if they buy it or if they check it out online, go on YouTube. There's so much stuff, so much great stuff they've done from 1970 on. It didn't just end right there. So if you want a show where you're going to hear familiar songs, but you're going to learn something at the same time. Hear a few songs in there that you never heard before, and it could be a side project. It could be somebody covering a Beatles song that you think is cool. Um, the newest show that I've done after the John Lennon special has two new cover versions from 2020 that just came out. One of them is a real cool version of The Word from Rubber Soul.
Okay,
Um, so, new interpretations of Beatles songs are great. They bring new life to the music, while the old stuff will always be great.
never go away.
So, it's keeping the Beatles as an ongoing present thing. It's not a nostalgia show on the Beatles. So, if you want to hear stuff that you know and love, you're going to hear that, but you're going to hear something else. You're going to hear something extra. So it's for people that still want to hear and learn something new about them all the time.
Okay. Well, what is your favorite Beatle album? That's gonna be hard.
It can change from year to year, but right now it's the White Album. I love the White Album because I love eclecticism, and you can't find any album on the face of this earth that's more eclectic
I
than the
agree.
White Album.
I agree.
A band that goes from something like dance hall music like Honey Pie to Helter Skelter, or to do something that combines Beatles and Beach Boys like Back in the USSR, something bluesy like
Your blues.
Your Blues. I think Savoy Truffle to me is kind of
Yeah,
bluesy-ish.
it is. Yeah, yeah,
Country music like Don't Pass Me By,
yeah.
folk music like Blackbird and Julia. Revolution Number 9. What else? How extreme can you get
Right,
on a body
right.
of work than the White Album? Obladi Oblada has a reggae influence in it. A children's type sing along song like Bungalow Bill.
Jingle Bell.
It's
Yeah,
it's got everything on there,
or Piggy.
and
Piggy's the
or
same.
Piggies. Piggies has some classical elements to it too. It works as like a Baroque type song. So, yeah, I love bands that can stretch and go to the max and do so many different things. And the Beatles were able to pull it off and do it really well, and they continue to do that in their solo careers.
Now, do you play just off the top of your head? Do you play any independent artists that are Beatles sounding?
I've done that through the years. I started doing that on the show in New Jersey. I'm going to incorporate that into the show,
Good.
Beatlesque music. The only problem that you have with that is that sometimes what in your ears sounds Beatlesque might not be to somebody else.
Right.
There are certain bands that I feel are really very apparent, like ELO, obviously, like Squeeze, like Crowded House,
Oasis.
XTC. Oh, definitely Oasis. So you can have that. Certainly, Billy Joel can be.
Yeah,
You
he's
could you
very influenced by the Beatles. You know that.
certain songs are very Lennon-esque with him, and some are McCartney-esque with him.
Right.
Yeah, but I used to when I did that on the show in New Jersey on WDHA, people would send me because in those days cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would get like Saturday in the Park from Chicago. Is that Beatlesque? Chicago loved the Beatles and still loves the Beatles.
Yeah.
You might say, that's more their sound. So how do you judge? You do
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that where it's very blatant, or you have to
Well,
use your own judgment.
I will say this about Chicago, because I talked to Tristan Boone. He was the drummer for 40 years after Danny Seraphin left, and he told me that the Beatles tried to actually outrank Chicago because they got to get you in your life, you know,
Right.
and that horn section. He's like, they tried to outdo us, but we loved them. We loved their music, you know. I'm like, that's cool. So I'm gonna send you some music that I've had over the years, because I've been doing it for 24 years. I've got all kinds of indie music that is Beatlesque, and they portrayed it as Beatlesque. One is a group called Rain. Another group is called Vinyl Kings. Another group is Fab Four. But they're all related to the Beatles. Probably have most of it.
You mean the tribute bands, Rain and Fab Four?
Well, not so much tribute, but their own bands themselves.
So it's their own original stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're not singing Beatles music. They're singing Beatles music through their songs.
Okay.
But they're the bands. And there's many other bands, too. That's just only a couple of them. There's the Oohs, the Ahs, and all the other ones. There's so many of them.
I'd love to hear it.
But, yeah, I would love to help you get that going. And I guess just give your contact info if anybody wants to hear you and where they can hear you. And, you know, if you ever want to come back, just let me know.
Okay, well, you can look at my website, which is kenmichaelsradio.com. And by the way, on the website, there's loads of interviews on there with people in the Beatle world that I've done, plus Beatles trivia every week where you can win prizes like books, CDs, and DVDs. You can email me at everylittleThing@att.net. And there's 2 podcast shows that I do on the Beatles, 2 talk show podcasts, one called Things We Said Today, one called Talk More Talk. And you can find out all about them on my website. And Talk More Talk is actually a video cast, so you can look them up on our Facebook page, which is Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. And we also are on YouTube. Things We Said Today is another one. That's strictly an audio show. That's on iTunes and Podbean and also YouTube. But yeah. By the way, do you know, you heard of Emmett Rhodes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's someone that I played back in the 80s with Beatlesque stuff. And it's sad that he just passed away. But that first album that he made called Emmett Rhodes on ABC has got so much on there that's very McCartney-esque. And that really works in that context. But I was thinking, I got a lot of people writing to me back then about Emmett Rhodes, and I never heard of him before. That's how I learned about him. And I hope to be doing something special about Emmett in the future with my shows.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for your time. Your show's on in about 1 minute, so we're getting ready to do that. But thanks for your time. And, of course, our friend Don Tandler, he checks in every now and then, and we say hi, and I see you check in with him. We're both friends with him, and he's like, Don's a great guy.
What a great station he's got.
Yeah, Don's a great guy. A lot of guys are like that,
Yep. I request music on his show every week during his request hour. And so much great stuff, a lot of hits that you normally don't hear that much anymore. You can hear on that channel. That's what I love about it. Yeah. So, but happy birthday, John. Happy birthday, Sean.
Yep.
Okay.
God bless both. Yep. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Gene.
You're welcome.